everyone. I am Terry Marshall. I'm sitting in for. Is this a real mic? Oh. Somebody from the council just left this off for me. Anyway, I'll start over again. Welcome to the first meeting of 2020 of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to start the meeting this morning by recognizing our city council liaison. And Steve, forgive me if I don't pronounce your name correctly, but Steve Siska is here, and he's our liaison. Phil Good is from the council, and Kathy was
Kathy's
here.
right here.
Yeah, Kathy Reason. Nice to have you. Is this your first P&Z meeting?
Not in my life, but as a council member.
Oh, okay.
Kathy's been here a number of times for issues.
Okay. Anyway, I'd like to introduce our commissioners this morning. We're short one. It looks like George Lee hasn't shown up yet, but our chair, George Sheets, is unable to be here this morning, so I'm sitting in for him. So, George, if you would introduce yourself, and we'll just go around the table here.
Good morning. Happy New Year. I'm Mel Roop.
Good morning. My name is Don Michaelman.
Ken Mabarak.
Ted Gambogi, and I must tell you that if you see me sneezing up here, I listened to KYCA this morning, and I heard about the allergy report, so I don't have the flu. I've been fine for days, but for some reason this morning I heard the radio broadcast, and now I'm sneezing.
Well, Ted, let me tell you, I've heard that caring is not sharing. So anyway,
One more announcement. We have at the podium here is Kay Lee, back from her maternity leave.
Yes.
Newly married, new child, and she's back as a P&Z coordinator.
Yes, I'll be the recording secretary for all the meetings, boards and commissions, and Michelle here is helping train me. Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
and thanks, Michelle, for being here as well. So, first item of business is the approval of the October 31st, 2019 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or changes?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. So we'll get right into our item number 2, Plan 19020, and I'll let Tammy Witt take it from here and we'll move forward.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. So before you today is a request for a rezoning of a property on Rosser Street. The property actually is on both sides of Rosser Street, but the main focus is on the south side of Rosser Street. On the north side, we have some floodplain through here, which you'll see in some other pictures, that makes it very difficult to develop, and there's no plans for anything on that property. So the request before you is from rezoning from single-family 35 to multifamily medium density to allow for the construction of 3 single-family residences. The reason why we're not doing this as a subdivision, the intent is these were going to be rental properties, so they're not going to be for sale, so they aren't going to be platted. And because of the infrastructure issues to get infrastructure to these parcels, it makes it very difficult to do it as actually single-family lots rather than as just three houses on the property as multifamily. So the three houses on this property with this portion of the property is about 55,000 square feet, about 1.26 acres on this portion of the property. So for the 3 houses on that property, it meets the adjacent density of the 18, which I'll show you in other maps. So this isn't really increasing density in the area, but we're doing it as multifamily because of infrastructure issues. That's why we propose that zoning density district.
Tammy, could you repeat what you just said about the, that's why we're doing this?
Yeah, that's why we was suggested the multifamily was that because of issues with bringing infrastructure to 3 single-family residential lots, it was almost impossible because of the drainage and other issues on the property. But doing it as the 3 residential lots, it makes it easier. And actually, with these parcels right here adjacent to it are SF-18 under a planned area development. And these 3 residences meet the same density as that adjacent development.
Yeah, I didn't hear that part about the infrastructure.
Sure. So here's a zoning map of the area. Most of the area is single family. Right here we have the SF-35 in this area. Adjacent, we have the SF-18 platted as a planned area development adjacent to it. And like I said, this will meet the same density as the SF-18 adjacent to it. Here's some imagery of the property. It is vacant. We do have some drainages that come through the property that go down to this creek. And like I said, this other property on Roster Street is also part of the request, but because of this drainage, this creek through it, it makes it very, very, very difficult to develop. And there are no plans at this time to develop that portion of the property. We're just looking at the south side at this time. And here's pictures of the property. The applicant is proposing to do 3 single-story residences rather than apartments. They will be for rental, not for sale. So this is most affected on the south side here of Cloudstone Unit 1 houses, which we do have single-story and 2-story houses. Here's another picture of the property. These are in your packet that show the terrain. We do have a drainage that comes through the property here, which does affect it. And then it has limited access off of Roster Street. There are no plans at this time to put a cut through Roster. It'd be right in, right out only. But in the future, they could possibly work with Public Works about getting a cut through, but I don't think that's to be discussed at this time. And here's the rest of the property here. And then here's another view of the property. At this time, the notices were sent out to all the property owners within 1,000 feet, and we have not heard. We got some phone calls with some questions, but we have no letters of opposition or support for the project. The applicant is here to answer any other questions, and I'm free. And that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners?
First, I want to compliment the staff on the report. The format with the headings and breaking up the subjects the way you've done it makes it a lot easier to read and a lot easier to go back and find information when you're looking for it.
Thank you.
A lot better than one big 2-page paragraph. Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there any concern about any precedent being set with a multifamily zoning in this particular area?
Each application is on a case-by-case basis. If there's any concerns in regards to the density, possible density, it is pretty limited to how the property could be developed as multifamily. This makes it where the property is a little usable, and the applicant has no intention of ever doing anything else rather than this. And we could also approve it per the site plan if that helps a little bit, but staff didn't bring that forward at this time, but if there's concerns, we could approve it per the site plan, and then any other changes in the future, they'd have to come back and amend the site plan. But any other applications for multifamily would have to come through the same process and show us what they want to do.
I'm just thinking with precedent, when future projects come in, there's always the
Sure.
comment that, well, there's already multifamily in the area, and it's just one justification for having another multifamily project of a different type. That's my concern.
Typically, the projects are looked at a case-by-case basis on their merit, and we kind of look at the area if there's similar uses, but each one is going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis on how they fit into the community.
What was the nature of the inquiries by the neighbors?
Just really, what were they proposing? Are they asking for apartments? And when we told them there's just 3 single-family rental units, there'd be houses there, it seemed to alleviate their concerns of an apartment complex going in.
No, nothing pro or con, just more of information gathering.
Correct.
In the staff report, it says, the staff says it may be compatible. I'm concerned about the word may. What's the staff's, is there concerns about compatibility? Is that why it says may instead of
No.
is compatible?
Because we weren't sure how the neighbors were going to react, because at the time we hadn't heard any from anybody. But like I said, this does the density that's being proposed for the 3 residences on this property does match the adjacent density that's already there of the 18 density. So this appears to be compatible. The concern was with the multifamily zoning, but like I said, because of issues with bringing the infrastructure in the property, this is the only way that we could do it, rather than him going through a subdivision and doing major excavating and such to bring the infrastructure in.
Yeah, the design of it and the way it's laid out, I think makes sense for the area. I think it's a good layout, and it's basically a single family when you look at it. And I think that it's a good layout. The average, when you take the total site area and divide by 3 units, it's almost 28,000 square feet per unit for the whole area, which is really a very low density.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tammy, the packet indicates that the developer wants to have it as rental property. What's to keep it from somewhere down the road of being sold off to individuals to be individually occupied single-family homes?
They would have to come through and plat them, probably as a planned area development, so it would come before this body. And the infrastructure, the way the infrastructure is being brought onto the property would make it almost impossible for them to be able to do that. They may have to redo the infrastructure. So the way this is being developed, it probably won't be able to in the future be able to be sold as individual housing units.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tammy. It's a great presentation. And I too noticed the difference in the presentation. Thank you. My question is probably the same as Don's. Oftentimes we've approved things with some condition that people promise they're not going to do this or that, and that promise changes. I understand what you're saying about why this isn't a subdivision, and I'm assuming it's because they could only get the houses where they have the houses, and you couldn't subdivide in that shape. Is that what we're saying?
If they rezoned it to the SF-18, similar to the adjacent property, and they came in with a subdivision plat under a planned area development, they could. The issue is bringing the infrastructure to the property. That's the main issue. Is
the infrastructure, doesn't it still have to be brought to the property?
Yes, but the way it has to be brought into the property, it doesn't meet the engineering requirements for a subdivision. So there's a whole nother layer that's preventing that from happening, or will make it very cost prohibitive.
No, I still don't understand.
And so this is allowing it to share the infrastructure. Otherwise, under a subdivision, it would have to be brought in separately.
Maybe you could explain what is the infrastructure they are sharing.
The water and wastewater.
So how do we,
Roadway,
and this
in the
is
road,
probably
yes.
a question more for Matt Pedracki, how do we control that? I mean, and I don't know if I care if they sell it or not, but it seems to be a condition of the request.
Good
Why is
morning.
that?
If it's the majority's preference, again, you can approve it subject to the site plan. And that's how you protect yourself. And if there's ever a change, then they're going to have to come back to this board for the change. Oh, sorry. Oh, that does make a difference. Again,
They could sell these off if they wanted to, on some arrangement.
Not as it's being presented, no.
right.
Not without doing a subdivision plat.
Or if they sell them, they remain rental units.
Yes.
I don't understand, but I don't have a problem with what's going on. I just,
Yeah.
the terminology is throwing me off, I guess.
Well, can you explain a little bit about the shared utilities, and maybe that'll bring some light on the issue? If they were individual residences, they would each require hookups, I assume,
individually.
to the individual.
So this is
How would
allowing
it
them to have
work?
the shared access here, and then they have one line coming in for the infrastructure rather than 3 individual lines. And there were issues with engineering on bringing the individual lines in.
How many meters are going to be there for water?
Well, there's 3 residences, so probably, I mean, I'd have to defer that to the applicant on how they're going to set that up.
Yeah, thank you.
I had some questions, some of which may be for you, may be for the builder. One of them, Don took off the board because I was going to ask, can you sell it later?
Sorry.
Just for clarification, these are single-story homes with 2-car garages, and the home is 1,800 square feet.
No, the square footage, that's for me.
Please state your name and your
Good
address
morning.
clearly.
Can you hear me? Okay. Keith Hughes, Hughes Building Company. Your question was again? I'm sorry.
I was going through all the papers, and I opened a corner of the print. I think I saw that each house is going to be 1,800 square feet with 2 garages, and they're single stories.
No. The zoning, I think the 18 that we saw had something to do with the zoning next door. The units are planned to be around 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage.
Okay. The write-up talks about that big square, both south and north of Rosser, but we're only evaluating the property south of Rosser. Is this, are we approving the purchase of the whole property?
We're rezoning the whole property,
Owning the whole property?
but if you look on the north side, there's a creek that runs through this portion of the property that makes it impossible to develop.
So
This is one taxing parcel, so we have to look at it as a whole.
Okay.
But in reality, we're really just looking at the development of the south portion. The north portion is, like I said, basically impossible to develop with that creek going through it.
And the south portion is about the 1.91 acres?
Though the whole parcel with both of it is 1.91, the southern portion itself is about 55,000 square feet.
5,000, okay.
Yes.
I think Don asked the same question. In the write-up, the contractor says it will meet adjacent SF-18 development, but in the next paragraph down, it says may. Why the difference?
Well, the setbacks do meet the 18 density setbacks, and it's the setbacks for that zoning district that they're proposing. So it's going to meet the same setbacks as you see adjacent, or actually probably more setbacks, because there aren't. So the rear setbacks that we see adjacent to the property are going to be the same as you would see in the 18 density.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have plenty of building separation and such, that there's no issues there. Since they're not individual lots, it's just still one parcel.
Now, I think Commissioner Roop said that it comes out to about 28,000 square feet, much more than SF-18.
That's a mistake. I thought the 1.9 acres was just the area we're looking at.
But there's a portion of that to the west that's unusable, right?
The drainage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what would be the area of where the 3 houses would be, excluding the area, and then how would that come out to per square foot?
I personally didn't calculate that. I based everything on the 1.91 acres and the usable portion of the property. One thing on the previous picture that she had shown is if you look at the density of the ones next door to me, which are in a PAD R1 18,000, I guess is what it's called, my density is much lower than that, and my spacing of my homes is going to be, well, I have 60 feet in my notations or in my comments, but based on the site plan I have right now, we're going to have a much lower density just based on where the houses are located. So it's not going to be anywhere near like 10 foot between the units like right next door.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, got a minute? Had a couple of quick questions for
Sure.
you. Why did you decide to do 3 single-family homes versus a triplex?
I'm a general contractor. I've been in town for about 26 years, and this is my personal project. It's for me. I'm not selling it on, even though I could sell it as all 3 units. I can't sell them individually. That's impossible to do without going back to re-subdividing. I plan on building nice units. My wife's a designer, so we're coming in with some nice units that are going to hopefully improve the area, or at least look nice in the area. So we're going to have a nice design coming in, and honestly, if I build single-family homes, I get more money for them.
Okay. The second question I have, will each unit have its own meter for gas and water?
I hadn't really discussed that as much as, since they're individual units, I don't really see a reason that I was planning on taking care of the sewer and the water myself and bringing it in as one meter, and then I would pay that for my clients or for my tenants, and that was my thought process. I mean, I'm going to weigh whatever the city tells me is the best way to go. If they tell me 3 units is better for some reason, I would prefer probably just one water meter, one sewer, and then hit the main line at the street.
Thank you. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't figure out the other part.
Now, can we make that part of the motion, that there should be just one
Per-
water and electric, or not? Or is that being too strict on the applicant?
That may be too strict because they have to ask for a waiver through engineering
Okay.
for that. So that's a separate process.
I have one more question on the north. How much of this land is north of Rosser?
About 0.7 acres.
1.7?
No,
0.7.
0.7 acres, and so
1.9, 0.7 is north of Rosser?
yeah. And one thing, you see the creek in there, and I don't mean to jump in here, but that's unbuildable across the street, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's literally FEMA floodplain, can't touch it.
So it's 0.7 north of Rosser, 1.2 south of Rosser?
That's about what that's what the GIS is telling us.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I'm still a little unclear about why it had to be multifamily. Was it, to state it another way, was it to get the cost of utilities down so that it could be smaller units and rental units? Was that basically the reason for doing it?
No, the multifamily makes it where he doesn't have to subdivide it. So if he came under the SF-18, he would actually have to do a subdivision plat and have separate meters and have the infrastructure issue.
So it's a cost saving.
And under multifamily, it keeps it as one taxing parcel, but you have the 3 houses on the parcel, which is allowed under multifamily, but it keeps it as one, and then they could be used as rentals.
And 1,200 square feet. I didn't see that in the staff report. Was that in the staff report?
No.
I don't believe that I put any, that's just what I've designed. I've built a lot of homes, and, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet is very livable, very affordable, and you can still make them look really nice, and they have 2-car garages, so, it's a nice unit.
Yeah, when I read the report, I wasn't aware of that. I visualized, I like the layout, the way the units are laid out on the property.
Thank you.
I think it's very creative, and I think it could look, but I visualized a larger unit and maybe more upscale for the neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Tammy, did the notice that went out to the neighbors, do they have any sense of the size of the houses there that are planned?
No, it was not in the notices to the neighbors.
Do we think that the neighbors who have very large houses there, I think, you think that'll be a concern? It would be a concern for me if I lived next to this and I've got a 3,000 square foot home to have 3 1,200 square foot homes in that neighborhood.
The zoning code doesn't have any size requirements.
Correct.
So in a SF-18, you could put a 300 square foot house on it by right.
No, I do understand that, but what we're doing is trying to change the zoning to accommodate what he's trying to do. I'm going to vote for this. I have a real concern, though, that having small houses next to big houses is going to create a mixture in the neighborhood that wasn't anticipated. And I think I'll even make the motion to approve this, but I'd stipulate that the city make sure that the ordinances in place apply to this so that we don't have something that's going to look so out of place to the neighborhood.
Yes.
That's my only concern with that. 1,200 square foot house in this neighborhood would probably shock a lot of people.
That was my issue with my questions about compatibility.
But I like the concept. You're using the land. I think it's great. Other than that, I'm a little unsure of what we're doing that's stepping around some ordinances and whatnot, but I see why we're trying to do it with this creek and whatnot and the roadway dissecting the property. But I just don't want to see this commission approve something that may make that neighborhood look different than it looks today.
Well, one comment on my part, sorry.
Please,
The units directly behind us there, and that is Cloudstone, and those are very, I mean, you can see they're high density, in my opinion, based on how close they are together. And I doubt if many of those homes close by are, you know, they might be. I didn't check, but I think some of them in there are 1,600. And, you know, I know up on the hill over the top, over the view, I mean, that's way up on top. They might be 3,000. But I think it'd be difficult to get a 3,000 square foot home on those. And with my homes, being that they are single level and they're more ranch style type homes, as you can see by the site plan, it's going to, in my opinion, improve the neighborhood instead of make it, you know, it's not going to look like a high density project.
Oh, I understand. But
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hughes. I do have some questions for Tammy. First of all, surface drainage. I read in the report that the drainage facilities are going to support a 100-year flood. Are those going to be concrete? Are they going to be just surface drainage? How is that going to be handled?
Where was,
If you look on the site plan, somebody got one of those plans?
Want to use mine?
No, would you?
Mel always has it.
Okay.
Mel always
was
has
it this right here?
I'm talking about the two channels over
Okay.
here where it says.
Your water surface limit.
I assume that
Oh,
that the homes, the placement of the homes are gonna be above,
those.
above the drainage.
Yeah, so this is the limits of the 100-year floodplain through this parcel. So yeah, they're way out, the homes are be
So there wouldn't
outside.
be- There would be no conflict with the water, surface drainage, and the home placement.
Correct.
Thank you. Second question I have, do all the setbacks that are shown on the site plan, do they meet with this zoning correctly?
Yes.
Now, one of the questions that I'm really concerned about, driving up and down Rocky Road, traffic does not drive at 25 miles. And I'm wondering, my concern is a 20-foot wide approach into this development satisfactory? Does it meet with traffic and?
They're going to have a shared driveway for this, and that's acceptable for a right-of-way. A right-of-way specialist of the engineering did a review this, and they had no concerns with that.
Commissioners, please speak into your microphones, please.
Have you noticed this, or was it a
Microphone.
concern? Sorry, thanks, Ted. I need an assistant.
Can't do it all, though.
This has been reviewed. It went through a PAC, a pre-application conference, and when our Public Works people reviewed this, they have no concerns with this access the way it's presented at this time. It meets their requirements and for fire.
Okay, I think that concludes all of my questions I had regarding the development. Anything else? Is anybody here from the public that would like to speak to this situation? Yes, please come up to the podium. State your name and address clearly for the recording secretaries, please.
Gloria Ramirez, 359 East Delano Avenue, Prescott. Even though there's only going to be 3 houses, my concern is they're rentals. And sometimes people that rent homes don't take care of the home. And that's going to be more traffic on Rosser. And you may think, well, it's only 3 homes, but how many people are going to live in the home? How many people are going to have cars? That's more cars on the road, more exhaust. I have a lung issue, and I'm very sensitive to chemicals and exhaust fumes. So if I want to be walking on Rosser, I would have to time it where there's not too much traffic. But then we're adding more traffic. Also, would this encourage other builders to start building? Is it going to just stay with the 3, or will another builder come along and find more property and want to build? I mean, my husband and I, we came to Prescott because the Lord led us here, but we just appreciate the beauty of the rocks, the natural land. We came from California. It's just a cement jungle over there. Here, you enjoy the beauty, the natural beauty that we get to see. So much building is going on, and I think it's already lost that small town touch that it once had. The streets are crowded now during the day when it wasn't that way. So I have to say I am not looking forward to any more building, whether it be on Rosser or anywhere else. I wish we could just leave it as is with what's going on and end it. That may not be fair to the builder, but these are my feelings and others that I know. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah. You probably know, if you live near Rosser, that Rosser has become a cut-across street in the city. And if I spent some time out there watching the traffic at a couple different times a day. And so I think the concern of more additional cars coming out of this 3-house subdivision is going to be pretty minimal, not to take issue with your concern, because I do appreciate it. But if you see, in the comment I made earlier, it's posted at 25, but only if you get 2 or 3 cars backed up between the 2 stop signs is the only time the traffic is slowed down. But one of the other things that I didn't ask Tammy is, I assume that it's going to be a right in, right out only, and there will be no cut through the median.
That's the intent at this time, yes.
Would the city approve a cut in the median, or is that cast in stone?
That would have to be reviewed with the Public Works Department to see if it's feasible in that area.
And if it's needed, justified?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I have no other questions. Anybody else from the public speak? If not, we'll close the public meeting, and we'll accept a motion to approve or deny.
I'll go ahead and make the motion here. I'm not trying to take your speed here, but I move to recommend approval of PLN 19-020, a rezone from single-family 35 to multifamily medium density per the site plan.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion been made and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussions?
Yes. Again, maybe for Matt Pedracki, this condition about not selling the buildings, is that really taken care of in the zoning and the
It is.
We're doing
They
this-
what they cannot do is sell the units individually. You can certainly sell them the way they exist, right, as 3 apartments.
correct?
So yes, I think.
But you can't
straight
sell
answer.
them. You can't condo them. You can't sell them individually.
Without coming back for further subdivision review, which is kind of the reason that we're here today,
Thank you.
is kind of to avoid the
I just wanted it on
subdivision.
the record. Thank
Yep.
you.
Is there any further questions? Okay, we vote. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
One opposed?
Oh, it's not unanimous then. Okay.
No, I've got
Do
concerns.
we have enough people here? We have to have 4?
We got 5.
So,
Yes, you do have a quorum.
I didn't vote.
You abstain?
1, 2, 3, 4. I will vote. I'm not abstaining. I can vote.
5 yeses.
So we have,
You need to vote, you need to vote for us to get the numbers.
so there's 4 yays and 1 no?
Yes, no, or abstain.
Abstain?
Mine's a yes, Ken.
He's a yes.
Okay, so unanimous.
No, we have 4 yays and 1 no. Commissioner Roop.
He's a no. Okay.
You want to state your reason?
If you want me to, I think it
I
was,
think it's important to state your reason.
I think it was stated, a compatibility issue in that area. The way I visualized the project was, as I said, I think the site plan's okay. I have a problem with the compatibility of 1,200 square foot units, rentals in that area. And I don't agree with going to a multifamily zoning basically to lower the cost of the project. I don't think that's, I think if it was SF-18, and that was my question in my mind when I read the staff report, why aren't they just going for SF-18? Because they have enough acreage to do that, probably. So it's mainly compatibility with the area.
I would kind of debate that with you. These 3 houses are going to be down on Rosser. All the houses we're talking about are up above, either in Cloudstone or even farther down Rosser Street. So it to me is not a problem. I don't see it as a problem.
I think if it were subdivided for single family and they had to go through the process for a subdivision and had larger, nice units, I think it would be compatible. That might cost more, but I think it would be more appropriate zoning for that area.
We're done.
We're done on that. But anyway, thanks for your comment.
I'm really impressed. We have 3 city council members here today. We've been trying to get more and more council members to our meetings because this is really the prelude to their vote. And a lot of the stuff that we do here, and including asking Mel to give his reasoning behind voting no on this, is it's really important that the council hear not just the result of a vote, but some of the deliberation that goes on, some of the concerns. I think we expressed them here. This is an interesting project, but there are some concerns that people had. So thank you guys for coming. It's been a while since we've had 3 of you here, and pretty impressed with that.
We can't have one more, though. That'd be a quorum. Right?
We don't need one more. Thank you anyway.
George, do we have any updates?
We do not, sir. Thank you.
Then is there any summary of current or recent events?
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll close the meeting.